All right, where's the... We need Stream Elements to come in here and be like, all right, we're live. Come on, Stream Element bot.
Hey, I
Come
see
to
it.
Twitch chat. Hey, wait, you see it already?
Well, never mind. That was
Oh.
a Discord message.
Oh, okay.
It said that you were live in the Discord message.
Oh, good, nice. Okay. Well, that's good then. That must mean we're live. All right.
Must be.
Good. It says we're live. We're live. Yay. What a concept. Okay.
Out here
perfect.
living.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Are you both ready? Good to go?
Ready?
All right. Welcome to episode 27 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your hosts, dragonrider and RonMexico. And we also, Ron, have a very special guest with us today. We have Ryan, aka Casey Kid, with us as well. Hello.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Happy to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys inviting me.
How could we not?
Absolutely. Especially after some of the things we're going to talk about. We had one. Yeah, but thank you so much for agreeing to come on and chat with us. Now, I want to start, we kind of do our mini interview. This might end up being just like part one and then part two of the interview. I feel like if you're going to stick around for the whole show with us. But first, can you just kind of talk about what is your history with card games? Like what got you into cards? What other card games maybe have you played? And what are you doing now?
Yeah, so at a pretty early age, I started playing, I think, Pokemon with friends, just kind of casually. And then my brothers at the time were into Magic the Gathering. And so I pretty quickly jumped up to Magic the Gathering, and I played that for quite a long time and played Yu-Gi-Oh! As well during the same time frame. But I will say I got out of cards, almost 20 years ago, and where I mostly just played at that point board games and a little bit of miniatures. So over the last, I would say, 8 years, I played Star Wars X-Wing pretty strongly, and I liked to play that competitively. So I did travel a little bit and played some X-Wing. But then I heard of this new game, SoulForge Fusion, kind of read the concept of it, right? The algorithmically created decks that a lot of people had hoped would get us away from the ability to net deck. Not that that is, necessarily an issue, but I would say in X-Wing, it was a very common thing. You would see a list being flown, and then you could easily just go see what was doing well in the current meta and fly the exact same thing. And not that that's what turned me away from the game by any stretch, but that is one thing that interested me very much in SoulForge Fusion. So I had missed the Kickstarter for SoulForge, but I quickly got into it right after release and started playing it here locally in Minnesota, where there's a small but strong crew. And that's what I've been up to recently. SoulForge Fusion quite a bit. I was able to meet Don at TCG Con Denver, which was phenomenal.
It was. That was such a fun time, and I will say I'm a net decker. I'm so
Not
bad
there's
at
anything wrong with
building
that.
No shame. No shame.
But that for me, that's the appeal of SoulForge Fusion too, and why I've been so drawn to that is because I don't have to build a deck. I just open one and go, cool, here's my deck, and I just play. When I play Hearthstone, I go, Ron, what have you been playing? I'm just going to copy your deck. And then if I lose with it a bunch, I just go, well, I'm going to blame you now because your deck sucks.
It's a solid move, honestly. I support it.
Yeah, but it's so interesting hearing the kind of different directions that people take of what guides them towards or away from different card games. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I really loved about SoulForge Fusion is the limited deck building, and I think one of the reasons I really got drawn to it was that I do like to find new things. I always like building decks. I like customizing new things. And I was never offended when someone took my thing, right? That's the greatest praise. But it is interesting to have a deck where no one can copy the exact same thing you built.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. So I also want to bring up before Ron gets to ask another question. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in again, cutting in line. I just also want to bring up, like, you also have started with content creation for this. So not only did you, I guess, jump back into card games after taking a break for a long time, but you've also started doing YouTube videos, which, like, what kind of drove you to want to start doing that? And kind of what made you want to pick the direction that you did?
Yeah. So you know, right when I started SoulForge Fusion, I did pretty well right off the bat, and a couple people noticed and would make comments that, hey, you think a little bit differently than some people that play this game. You have an interesting mindset, and then they would ask me questions, and it just kind of went from there. And then I went to Fuse Fest, which was the Set 2 pre-release event here in North America, and I was on a car ride, a very long car ride with a couple of other individuals, and we had just phenomenal conversations. Hours and hours of SoulForge Fusion tactics and strategies, and talked about the things like, what do we wish we had known when we first started playing the game that would have really just kind of jump started our ability to play. And out of that, I thought maybe this is something that I could help new players come into the community and increase their skill level, so that you can avoid those moments where you don't understand a part of the game, or you make potentially a subpar move, and then later on you go, oh, I wish I would have known better, right? So that was really the impetus for creating it. And to be honest, it's really fun to try to learn video editing, learn YouTube. Like, I always enjoy learning new things, so I do get some of it out of it as well.
That's awesome. I learned a lot from your videos ahead of TCG Con. I was like, all right, I'm watching all of these videos so I can learn as much as I can, because I know like nothing. I started playing the game like basically 2 weeks before the convention, so I was like, I know nothing. I need
I like
to
the
learn.
these cards look cool approach. Sometimes that works.
The first tournament I went to for SoulForge, I honestly cracked a booster and I said, these cards look cool.
Hell yeah.
And it worked. It worked. So
Awesome. All right, Ron, you want to hit him with a couple of questions?
I actually wanted to hear a little bit more about Star Wars X-Wing. I've always been like a huge Star Wars fan my whole life, and I don't know anything about that game, but it sounds super awesome. What was your like background and experience in that when you played it?
yeah, so I loved X-Wing or Star Wars. I've always been a Star Wars fan, huge fan, and someone showed me X-Wing, so I tried it out. It's a squad based aerial tactics game. So you get to build a list of typically anywhere from 2 to 8 ships, and fly them in formations. Use tactics to fight another squad, essentially as a death match. The game has evolved a little bit since then to now have objectives and scenarios where you could have zone control, point objectives, and things of that nature. But it was really interesting to me because you didn't just have flexibility in the way you could build your list, like the proton missiles you could load out, or plasma missiles, just the different types of way you load your ships, but also the way you fly your ships, right? You could fly in formation. When you first got attacked, you could kind of scatter and try to come back around, and you could really see how different people approach the game and their mindset, if they're aggressive or if they're not. And it just showed out in a different way than a typical board game or a card game would.
That's cool. I love the concept.
Yeah. And I think you're like the second or third person we've had on this show now that has mentioned playing that. And I'd never heard of it, honestly, until we started interviewing people on this show. And it's like, what? I've never heard of that. So I find that very interesting.
I do think it's a great way to wade into miniatures gaming. There's a couple other good ones that are easy to get into and easy to start playing. Star Wars X-Wing is phenomenal for that as well.
Okay, interesting. You got any other questions you want to ask right now, Ron?
The only other thing I really had like forefront of my mind was just hearing about like any particular like accomplishments or specific things that you've done like within the realm of card games that you're like really proud of, or something you want to talk about. Like soapbox time, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll talk about my most recent, last two Soulforge Fusion Ultimate Championships. So my brother and I went to both of these tournaments, and I have the honor of being second in an Ultimate Championship twice now, back to back, which, some people have asked, that must hurt, but not really. To be honest, to be able to share this with my brother, who happened to get first each time. So I lost to him in the finals each round. But it's very cool as siblings to go first and second into back-to-back of the first major tournaments for this game, which has just been very cool.
Nice. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think we'll talk about that a little more, and I'll phrase it the way that I have it typed in the show notes because you liked how I had the phrasing in there. We'll save that one for a little bit later. But the last question that I'd like to ask you right now is just talking about Soulforge Fusion. We've talked about it some on this show, and like I've been getting into it. But if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's kind of picking up the game for the first time, trying it out, and maybe they want to take it farther, they want to know more, they want to learn more, maybe try a tournament, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, the best advice, I think, and I think this goes for most games, I would say, but when you buy your initial collection, whatever size pool that is, right? Some of us jump, 10 feet in, and some of us just kind of dip a toe, right? However big your collection is, start by playing all of it. Don't just pick your favorite and play only that for a while and just get to know one deck. I think as humans, we tend to have the tendency to want to be the best we can be. And we think by sticking with the same set of cards or the same deck, and I'm just going to be a master of this strategy. A lot of people will take that approach. I think, it's best to just play all of your cards. And what I like to do is just play random. Even today, I'll randomly pick, Soulforge Fusion decks and play those, because you're interfacing with cards that you wouldn't normally interface with, and you'll start to understand those niche scenarios where those cards, if you thought they weren't good before, they might have actually a very decent use. And so a lot of cards will surprise you, and I think that's the best way to get used to the whole, body of every set, essentially.
That's really good advice. And
I like it.
I think, Ron, that is advice that means that you should play more priests.
I knew that something like that was coming. I was already
knew it.
thinking when you were saying that, I was like, oh, so maybe I shouldn't have like 3 times as many wins in Hearthstone with Hunter than literally every other class? No,
That's right.
no,
Yeah.
it couldn't be.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well,
Awesome.
when you find what's good, though, of course, play it.
Solid. I definitely will stick by that most of the time. But I think it is like extremely good advice, especially when it comes to like starting out when you're learning a game, especially, that makes a whole lot of sense. Don't confine yourself to one thing. Be a jack of all trades first, and then refine your interests.
Yeah. I agree. And I think with that, we will wrap up this segment and just, we'll have links and we'll talk more later in the show about where you can find more from Ryan, besides in the Stoneblade Entertainment Discord. But he mentioned his YouTube video. We'll plug all of that later as well. and talk a bit more about the rest of this stuff. But real quick, we're going to just bust through a couple of these segments that we have. The first one's going to be our term of the week. Ron.
Actually, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind taking this one, because I don't really know much about Scoop at all.
What?
I know.
Wait. Hold on. Doesn't Scoop come from poker? How do you not know the term Scoop, Ron?
Well, I didn't.
Hold
I wasn't
on.
thinking of it in terms of poker. I thought it was maybe something
Wait.
else.
No, it's that. It's that. That's it.
Just the poker term, like
Yes.
you just take everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, my bad. Sorry, I had a weird day today. So less prepared than I otherwise would be.
That's
Um,
okay.
I don't have a whole lot to go in on as far as like Scoop is concerned in terms of other card games. I definitely am familiar with it, like in poker, just being like, oh, when you win a particular pot, or you have like the best type of hand, you just scoop, which means you just take the whole pot and you win. So it in other card games is reference to maybe like something so overpowered that it's like an auto win. Maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. Where you just once it's like, well, okay, I've definitely lost this game. There's just like no way I can do this. You just basically it's like, right, you scoop up all your chips. That's where it came from in poker. Right? You're scooping up, you're just scooping everything away. It's just gone. That's it. You're just conceding. You're leaving the game. But I did want to just also mention that that is thanks to one of the Twitch viewers, Dave G. And as we've mentioned in previous episodes, if you ever have a term that you'd like us to talk about, then definitely please do that. But it was kind of funny because I was like, that comes from poker. And then Dave had said he actually heard that first from watching some Magic the Gathering streams. So I was like, okay, so here's some more terms that are kind of transcending across multiple card games.
Yeah, sometimes things bleed over in just different ways. It's kind of funny how it happens.
Yeah. All right. And like I said, we're going to whip through this news here. So I'll take away our news. For general, TCG Con Denver happened last weekend, May 20th and 21st. We're going to talk about that a bit more in depth for our main segment. For Hearthstone, Festival of Legends mini sets was announced. They are doing card reveals throughout this whole weekend, and it will be launching next week on Wednesday, May 31st. They're calling it Audiopocalypse. So Festival of Legends Audiopocalypse coming out. For Flesh and Blood, the Dusk Till Dawn booster set was announced, and it's a special milestone, being their 10th booster set released since the game came out. Marvel Snap has also released their latest patch. They're doing a ton of those, but the latest patch released with some card changes, several locations being removed, and they also kind of put in a note about the patch versus OTA schedule cadence that they kind of want to stick to because they've gotten some good feedback on those OTA patches. MTGA launched on Steam, which is super cool. I think that's kind of an indication that MTGA has been growing and is launching on multiple platforms now. So pretty awesome. A couple things for Pokemon. The Pokemon TCG Scarlet and Violet Paldea Evolved will be releasing on June 9th. And then they just announced Scarlet and Violet Obsidian Flame, which will be releasing on August 11th. And then for Legends of Runeterra, they released a big Eternal-focused patch. Got 23 buffs, a handful of nerfs. They are having 2 Runeterra opens in the month of June that will be in that Eternal format. They're coming out with some more Pride bundles that are completely free until June 28th that have some emotes and icons. There's a couple of emote and icons celebrating the release of Convergence, a League of Legends story that just came out. And you can also get 7 free standard decks until June 28th. So if you want to log in and get a bunch of free stuff, you have until June 28th. That's what I'm going to say. Log in before then and claim a bunch of stuff because that is super cool. So that is what we have for news. Quite a bit there. But what do we have this week for competitive and organized play, Ron?
Right on. Well, quite on the same vein as with news, we got a little bit more than previous weeks in competitive and organized play. Hearthstone has a big tournament this weekend with Battlegrounds. Lobby Legends is happening this weekend. There are 16 players playing with a $50,000 prize pool, which is pretty exciting and is currently going on. You can catch on Twitch over this weekend. There should be some pretty exciting stuff with old hand casters, Raven and Soddle, that you might recognize from a lot of other official Hearthstone events. In Magic, we have the Arena Championship 3 happening this weekend. 32 players playing and a $200,000 prize pool. Also, a spot at the next Magic the Gathering World Championships is up for grabs, and that is streamed at also on Twitch, twitch.tv/magic. It's going to be starting at 9 a.m. Pacific each day. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has some exciting things going on with YCS Philadelphia this weekend, with WCQ Regional Qualifiers for Cyberstorm Access also happening this weekend. And the Cyberstorm Access Regional Qualifiers are the last chance to earn a WCQ invite and world qualifying points for the 2023 season. So definitely a huge deal there. And we've mentioned many times before, the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series event will be taking place in Cancun, Mexico, September 16th through 17th of this year. Lastly, some competitive news for Flesh and Blood. We've got Battle Hardened Metropole Ruhr happening June 2nd through the 4th. We've got The Calling Singapore happening June 9th through the 11th. Battle Hardened Baltimore happening June 16th through the 18th at SCG Con. And USA Nationals is going to be going down at the fabled Westgate Las Vegas Report, where a calling event will be happening. And that is August 25th through 27th of this year. So a lot of exciting stuff. Ton of things this weekend.
Yeah. I noticed that when I was filling in some of the notes. I was like, why is it all this weekend? We've talked about that. Like
we go in cycles, you know. If someone's doing something this weekend, there's a whole bunch going on also this weekend. Another game.
Nah, nothing. 4 different card games all in the same weekend. Okay, well, I hope you're not a fan of all of them, because good luck trying to keep up with it all at the same time. Oh, well, thank you. I think we did pretty well with going through those pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and jump into our roundtable topic of this week, which is going to be kind of, I guess, our part 2 interview with Ryan, and talking about TCG Con Denver, which I also attended. We talked about that and it was super fun. So I don't know, Ryan, you want to kick things off with just talking a little bit about your experience at TCG Con Denver?
Yeah, so arriving at TCG Con Denver, Soulforge Fusion had a pretty big banner set up, was pretty easy to find, but walking in, the amount of vendors and the amount of people was actually quite a bit, pretty impressive. And sitting down for Soulforge, the day one was Saturday, was the constructed day, if you will, the competitive tournament. And then the second day was side events, which was, ended up being, I think, 2 sealed events, depending on how long people stayed. And, with the algorithmically created decks of Soulforge Fusion, I think sealed is really the funnest way to play, because you just kind of handed a box of random things and you get to pick 2 of the 4, slap them together, and just start playing a game, which is really a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. I think even as a new player, I probably still didn't really have a chance, winning any games. But I had more fun playing in that sealed event, I would say, because it kind of even just gave me that like hope that maybe I had a chance, right? I'm like, cool, I'm just like picking some decks and everybody else is picking decks, and maybe I can put something together that's at least somewhat decent, and if I play it okay, maybe I can win. So that was, even as a new player, that felt like a really cool way to just jump into the game and go.
Yeah, and for being a new player, I mean, the tournaments I think were 10 players one day and 12 the next day. And 3 of those were previous top cut Ultimate Championship players. Another 4 of those were more or less pillars of the online community for this game that play in and out, every day. So jumping in, it might have been a difficult task to win games because you were up against some very, very competitive players. But it was fun to see the new players. Great to interact with everybody. That's one of the coolest things about this game is the community's absolutely amazing. I mean, day 2 we ended up with more players than day 1 because a couple of people who saw the game, I think, just said, "Oh, I want to, come over here and play with you guys. That looks like a lot of fun." So that was really cool to see.
Yeah. One of those was Ron knows, Based Inc. She was the friend that actually came with my husband and I down to the event. She played in the Yu-Gi-Oh tournament the first day, and then was like, we were kind of showing her the game. She was standing around just chatting with some of the people from the Soulforge, community while we were playing our matches. And she was like, "This looks pretty cool," and she was just kind of invested, asking some questions, and then, we kind of helped her out. And then when it was time for the sealed, again, it was easy because even though she didn't really have anything for the game, she got the decks just by playing, so she didn't have to even bring a deck. And we just lent her like tokens, and I think a lot of other people were kind of really like, "Hey, here's a play mat you can borrow, and like here's the stuff that you have, some counters or some dice or something so that you can use those along with these decks that you essentially paid for with the buy-in and doing the draft." So yeah, it was absolutely super cool to see like that kind of mix of veteran, like well-known competitive players with us that were like, "We don't really know what we're doing, but we're here and we're having fun." So yeah, I have to say I didn't expect to win, but I hoped that I would win at least one. It didn't happen, sadly. So that first day, right, was, you said 10 players, and yeah, I put on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, bad news, I didn't win, but good news, I was in the top 10." And then the Soulforge Twitter account even was like, "Hey, congrats on top 10." So that was hilarious. I was like, "Yeah, look at all this support. This is great."
Love that.
One thing, it's really cool to see like the official Stoneblade. The game is still fairly small, and the developers are very invested with the community. At any given point, you can jump on the Stoneblade Discord and talk with, the rules person, the director of OP, any of the developers. They're very invested. Even Justin Gary from time to time jumps into the Discord and talks with players. So one thing is, I think we feel very heard as a community. And that just kind of translates to these events, where we had a great time, and it's really cool to see that they responded to your message out.
Yeah. Which was slightly like salt on the wound, but also at the same time it was like, "Yeah, like they're cheering me on, let's go." Like, so it was super cool. But yeah, I had an absolute blast. It was, my first event. Like I said, I basically just started playing a couple of weeks before the event, in preparation for going, because I was like, "Soulforge, cool, this seems really great." And then my husband and I played like 2 games. We were like, "This game is cool." And then I learned about TCG Con, and it was like, "That's in Denver. That's not a very far drive. Like, let's go." And so we pretty much were like, "We should probably learn this game before we just go and like play a tournament." But it was super fun.
Well, and one thing I noticed is match 1, you guys got paired up against each other, which is always unfortunate. You drive to an event to meet and play new people, and match 1, there you go.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, I mean, so that right, round one, husband versus wife, finale, brother versus brother. It was like, and then there was a father and son that were there at
Yep.
the event as well. I think they got paired up at one point, and both days for the main tournament and then for the side event sealed draft, I ended up playing against both of them, and I'm like, oh, I
Of
was hoping
course.
to, face against like other people on the
Yeah.
second day, but now I got to like the same pairings. I'm like, no, I lost to you all yesterday. I don't want to lose to you again today. But yeah,
I did play Sean, the son, in the sealed event, and he crushed me. So he's pretty good at card games. He was telling me he's played a lot of them. I'm hoping he sticks around Soul Force Fusion because he had a very interesting sealed deck choice that he made, and piloted it really well. So that was really cool to see.
yeah, he did. He crushed me too. And I think in his draft, his sealed draft, and he landed a Taliesin, and I could not remove it. And I was like, well, I guess I just lose this game. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, turns out free cards are good.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty good. Oh, okay. Ron, I know that you don't know much about this game. The card names probably mean like nothing to you. But
I heard free card, and I
Free
agree.
cards, yeah.
Free cards are generally always good.
yeah, yeah. It's I'll try to think of a good like Hearthstone comparison for you for Taliesin. I felt like there was also a lot of Shamblers over the weekend, which turns out Shamblers are good. Yeah.
Facts. Yes. For the listeners, a Shambler essentially is a card that anytime a creature dies, you damage your opponent and you gain life. You're literally just stealing the life of your opponent, and that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out, especially when it starts leveling up and potentially dealing more damage, and oh yeah, it's not great.
I had one of my matches in the preliminary that I lost to Cody, who was playing I like to call the Shambling Squared. So it gets the algorithmically created Forge Word of Shambling on top of the base creature Shambler. So it gets to do the thing twice anytime a creature dies. He essentially had a turn where I had no hand involvement and affected a 72 health point swing in the game. And in this game, you start at 50 points. So that's pretty drastic.
72. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think we were both staring at each other across the table, and I said, if you drew it, you drew it. Like, there's nothing I can do here.
Yeah, like you just knew. You knew.
Yep.
Oh,
Sometimes it's just like that.
yeah, that's card games. All right. Ron, do you want to ask us any questions or ask Ryan any other questions? Kind of guide a little bit about the TCG Con?
Just overall, like how did it feel like going to TCG Con, and is it the kind of experience that you would recommend someone else do, even if they had like minimal involvement in card games? Like how big of a card game investment do you need to have to be like kind of a newcomer to it and join in? I guess to either of you, talk over each other, go crazy.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that when you travel to these events and you get to meet people in person, especially if they're people you've talked to online, but even if they're not, you get to form a human connection, and that's not for everybody per se, but you gain an investment level, right, in the game that you would not have otherwise, just playing the game with your local competitors, and then hearing about these events. I first traveled to Fuse Fest for this game, which was earlier this year, and the people that I met there, I've maintained contact with online, which increases my, I would say, competitive viability, right? Because I met other good players. We talk, we continue to talk, and we share strategies. But not only that, then like I become invested in the future of the game. My interest level peaks up. I just think it's maybe an unnoticed factor in really increasing not only like your skill, but just your mental capacity of the game, because you talk to people outside of your silo of information. You know, it's just a really fun time as well to meet people.
Yeah, I would say from my end too, being like very new, you know, both my husband and I knew based that came along with us. Like she joined that second day. She was absolutely new. And I think, first of all, it speaks volumes about a game and a community when somebody came for a different event and then goes, yeah, that kind of sucked. I want to play over here with you all. I want to play your game on the second day. Like that's, you know, first of all, that's huge. But also, like, I didn't even honestly feel new. Like everybody was just so welcoming. It was just like chatting with people that I've known for a long time, even though I literally had just met them. You know, everyone was super friendly. The players, the like kind of staff that were there, Church, who is also from another Soulforge podcast, and Cody, who Ryan has mentioned, they do a podcast. And they actually had like these really cool like custom token cards with like a QR code that links to their podcast that they were giving out to everybody there, which I was like, hell yeah, these are awesome looking. I love these. Super cool. And, you know, it was fun. And I got token things just for competing. So I got cool little tokens. There was also little like, for participating, everyone was supposed to get a zombie token. There was some error in the printing of those, which they were definitely not right on part of it, which was hilarious. But then Alex, who is, as Brian mentioned earlier, the kind of overall, like he's like the tournament guy, right? He does like all of the tournament stuff for Soulforge overall. And he is actually from the UK, but he came and he was there. And then kind of him and Church that were running the tournaments, and who else was there? Nick Fletcher, who works on the game as well. He was there, and they all were like, well, we can't really give these out because they're like wrong. And if you play with them, like there would be like, it would be breaking the game essentially because they're totally wrong. But then they said, okay, well, let's take a Sharpie. Let's like cross this out. And then like they signed it so that it was like corrected and then has their signature on it. And then they still gave it to everybody, which honestly, I was like, that's super cool. And that's something that like probably nobody else will really ever have, right? That's a pretty limited, like exclusive kind of thing. So I was like, hey, that's a really kind of cool thing that they did. And you know, Church was just an amazing tournament organizer. He was super, super like inviting and welcoming, helped everybody get checked in for the tournament, helped do all that. And, you know, just the whole time, like, even though I was new to the game, it didn't feel like I was new at all. And honestly, that is huge. And that has made me want to do even more. Now I'm like, now I want to go to all the events. Like, this is super cool, right? And like,
line them up. Yeah.
I didn't win a single game, but I walked away with like a couple new decks from the sealed event. I walked away with little token things. I walked away with a cool custom like robot dog thing that links to a cool podcast. Like I got all sorts of prizes and I didn't win a single game. And that was cool. So I was like, cool. If I sucked, I still got stuff. So I still felt like I walked away with something, and I don't think I felt that for quite a while now in a card game. So that was very cool to me as somebody who was pretty new.
That's awesome. That's like exactly the experience you want. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Church. I would say that I'm trying to give him a new name that people are going to call him by, and he is now the People's Champ. He's a very strong player in the game, but he gave up the opportunity to play when he was asked to do the TO, you know, because he wants to give people that experience, the exact experience you mentioned. When he hears that, he's going to be on the moon, because that's exactly what he wanted to provide. So that's so cool to hear. But he gave up the opportunity to play, and I know that doesn't hurt his feelings one bit. But for that reason, I'm going to try to get the whole community to just start calling him the people's champ.
I like it.
He really is. It absolutely felt like it. I also did get to actually do an interview with him at the convention there too. So I've got a little bit more editing I want to do on that, and then I'll be putting that out on my YouTube. So, if you're like, okay, who are they talking about? Then you'll know.
Yeah, stay tuned for dragonrider reports from the scene. I'm looking forward to it.
I didn't say it. I didn't say that. Dragonrider reporting live from TCCG.
Missed opportunity.
Well, I didn't feel well the second day, and then I don't know. I feel bad. I was talking to Ryan, and then I'm like, after a few minutes, I was like, hey, sorry, I gotta go. And I had a super bad migraine that second day, and then I had to go to the bathroom and throw up a couple of times because the migraine was so bad. So I felt so bad. I'm like in the middle of matches. I'm like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go puke. And yeah, people are like trying to talk to me, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I gotta go. So yeah, it was still a lot of fun and a great event, even like despite that. And I just tried to push through it because I was like, I want to soak up as many of like these moments of talking to people and playing as I could. So yeah, I just tried to push through that. But I feel like I'm also weird in person. Like I don't know, I'm awkward.
I think we all feel like we're awkward in person, right? That's just kind of a normal feeling.
Probably. Yeah.
I mean, especially when you like enter into like a brand new thing and you don't know anybody. If other people know each other from like a previous event and you weren't at that previous event and you show up, it's like impossible to not feel awkward. But what's really cool is when you have those welcoming communities that just make you feel either less awkward, or after like just a little bit of time, it kind of dissipates. You feel like part of the crew. Like, it's really awesome.
Yeah. I don't know why. Every time I hear that, I just want to say part of the crew, part of the ship.
I set you up for it.
You did. Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, yeah, I thought it was an absolutely fun event, and I've definitely been looking to like what else is coming, what else is there. But even just like such a small event, there was a lot of that very welcoming and everybody chatting. But I want to bring up this next point, and I'm going back to this question that I typed, and I'm going to read it right off the document here. So, Ryan, you and your brother have both become quite the topic of discussion when it comes to your level of play, your decks, and your tournament results. Can you talk about how that came about and what it's like being the quote unquote big bads that people want to beat?
Yeah, I did laugh pretty hard when I read like the big bads. That's I don't know that can ever really feel right in my head, I guess. But a lot of it. I think we're good at the game, right? We've done our practice, we've done our research, we looked at the cards, we practiced together, play tested, theorized, and built the decks. But then at some point, there's still a big portion of luck that goes into what we were able to do going top two in two competitive events. So if anything, I think that I dose it with a bit of that, right? There was luck involved, and that keeps it normalized. But it is very interesting to hear the community discuss the decks and theory craft on how to beat the decks or beat the players. And it's just a lot of fun to see. And then, I mentioned the net decking before. It's also fun to see people try to create their own versions of some of the decks. I know I'd say my brother's was a fairly unique concept when we built that deck first. And then mine is, I would say, more of a common concept in the game. just rolled a little bit more efficiently in the algorithm than some might get, right? But I don't know that we'll ever be the big bads, because there are a lot of other online tournaments that are going on with this game. We just happen to be the ones that did well at the 2 in-person events. The Shuffle Bus is another content creation for SoulForge Fusion. They ran a pretty large tournament. My brother and I were both in there, and we did not win. So I think some other decks won, but these ones just get a little bit more impetus, I guess, because they were the Ultimate Championships, which is very, very cool. One part of your question, though, is, how that came about. And I will say that we mentioned now Church and Cody, who run a podcast for SoulForge Fusion, and they run it out of Minnesota. So local players that I played with, and I got to see them, and, they are brother-in-laws. And I thought, well, it's really cool to be able to share this experience, right? Playing the game, enjoying it with your brother. And I know my brother has been very competitive, Greg, in L5R, Magic the Gathering. I mean, you name the trading card game, he's probably been involved in some way, shape, or form. So I just, after a night of playing against Church and Cody, I went on to Discord, where I'm in a group with my brother, and just dropped a link to SoulForge Fusion and said, hey, this is a pretty cool game if anyone's interested. I didn't follow it up with anything else, right? Just left it at that. And I knew in his mind that he would take a look at it, probably not leave a comment, but the next time he saw SoulForge Fusion on the shelf, he would be, oh, I'll buy a couple decks. So I think a month and a half went by, and then out of the blue, he sends me a message on Discord. Hey, I bought some SoulForge Fusion decks. You want to try this thing out? And it's like, yep, I've been waiting for this moment, So yeah, we jammed some games, and then we started talking, and then the first Ultimate Championship was at Indiana. So my brother lives in Kansas, I live in Minnesota. They said, hey, let's meet up in person and play again. And so we both drove out there, met up, and there it is. So really, it just, I guess, all kind of stemmed from, trying to get my brother into the game, which has been phenomenal. But then, yeah, we play tested the decks, and we ended up, I don't know if I want to get into too many details of the decks, but they, it's purple green, in SoulForge Fusion, that's called Necria Mutera. So we both have the exact same color matchings, but wildly different deck concepts, which is also really cool.
Yes. Those two, I would say, definitely, I think, were extremely popular in the tournament. I think the first day, every single player had green, right? Had Utera.
Yep. Yeah, and then every other deck had purple except for 2. 2 of them were green blue.
That was mine.
And so, with most of these games, you're going to have in sets, different factions kind of get the high roll or the better run. But I would say we haven't fully fleshed out these things. It is still a very new game. I mentioned that Shovel Bus tournament, which I think was 27 people, and a red-blue deck won that, which, yeah.
All right. So you're telling me to really get Ron into this so that I can get Ron hooked on SoulForge, I just have to keep drop a link and then maybe somehow convince him to see it at a game store.
True.
So
true.
you can buy some more. How long ago was it now? Maybe 2 months?
I think probably 2 months ago.
A month and a half, 2 months ago on the show, we both opened a set 1 starter kit. To we're like, okay, let's open these live on the show. We have no idea what we're looking at. Let's try this. So we're looking at these things. We're both like, okay, cool. There's cards and things. We don't know what any of this means.
I remember seeing some dinosaurs. I was pretty hyped about that.
There was dinosaurs.
So I watched that episode, and I got to tell you, I also love dinosaurs. Some of the first decks I played were all dinosaurs, and I also get very excited about dinosaurs in this game, or in any game when I see them, which is a lot of fun. And watching watching that and listening to that episode, it was really kind of fun to watch you guys' progression of seeing the cards, figuring out the minions, seeing that there's no rules. Like that's one of the bad parts I would say about the starter kit. But
Yeah.
We're like, wait, what do we do?
Yeah, we're like, cards, cool. What do we do with them?
It just reminded me of when I opened the thing, right? Like actually seeing or hearing someone go through the process who hadn't done it before. I could tell neither of you opened it before, and it was really just enjoyable to be like, yes, that was my exact experience. Nailed it.
Nice. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun opening the set, and I was looking forward to trying to play with my partner, but I still have not gotten Michelle to play that game with me. In large part, though, she's just doing like crazy nursing shifts right now. Like she's on a 12 right now. She's got like 3 more 12s coming up in the next few days. Eventually, it's gonna happen, and I'm gonna slam down those dinosaurs, and she's gonna be sorry then.
You're gonna play and you're gonna be hooked, Ron. I'm telling you, you're gonna be hooked, and then you're gonna be joining us at the next Soulforge
Day
tournament.
is coming. I gotta take down the big bad somehow, right?
Good luck. Good luck. You too can be in top 10. I will say. Oh, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ryan, for talking about that. I just, you commented on the wording that I had used for that question, so I had to make sure that I read it as I had it typed. Oh, well, anything else that we want to talk about before we move into some lightning round questions?
Oh, I've been looking forward to the lightning round. Let's dive into it.
Awesome. Do you want to start, Ron, or do you want me to kick off the first one?
I can kick it off. So I guess I love this question too. This is one of my favorite questions. So Ryan, if you're ready, lightning round, here we go. Just quick gut reaction type of questions. If you were a card from any of the card games that you played, which one would you be?
Hypnotic Spectre.
Sweet. Tell me what that is.
Yes. So when I played Magic the Gathering a long time ago, it was a 2/2 flying creature that when it hit the opponent, they had to discard a card, and I believe it was at random.
Ooh, okay.
Ouch.
I can see it. I dig it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite cards. To this date, I still have a deck, that I shelved away in the closet that's got 4 of them in there. So
that's awesome.
All right. Next question. What is your favorite type or archetype of deck to play?
It's got to be control. And I think that goes back to the Hypnotic Spectre as well. I feel like, if I can take away all of your good decisions, then I have nothing left to do but probably win the game. And so the more in control, the better.
I would say that's also probably a very like Necrium or purple in Soulforge as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say in Soulforge, my first attempt was a Loyan blue because I loved purple blue back when I played Magic for that very control aspect. And so, yeah, Necrium has definitely been enjoyable.
Nice. Next question for you. What's one goal you have for yourself in the card game sphere?
Yes, I will beat my brother in the finals at Worlds at Gen Con for Soulforge Fusion this year.
I love that.
Let's go. It's the rivalry we've all been waiting for. I want to see it. I'm rooting for you. All right.
Yep. I was able to take him down one match here at TCG Con Denver in the preliminaries, but I was not able to beat him in the finals, unfortunately.
Dang.
It just it sets up the arc better so that you can have the full redemption arc when you get him in Gen Con. It'll be good.
Yes, perfect.
Exactly. It's all scripted. It's all scripted.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So not that it's scripted, but part of the rewards for winning an Ultimate Championship are that you get a future card made in your likeness. And so when he won Indiana, he set it up as his card that he wanted was I won't go into details essentially, but a brother who had lost his brother essentially through one way or another, just kind of leaving open the possibility that if I were to win one in the future, that we could have a set of dueling brothers. And so when we went to so when we went to Denver and he won, because he had already had one, the reward passed down to me. And so in the near future, in a couple sets down the road, there's going to be a Uteran and a Necrium brother in Soulforge Fusion, which I think that will be very fun to see.
That's awesome.
Super cool.
It's like it was scripted almost. He set it up and then it follows through. I like it.
Right.
That's right. So what you're saying is whoever gets third place at Gen Con gets a card.
Yeah.
All right.
Go for third. There's a big payoff there.
All right. The next question we have here is, do you prefer physical or digital cards?
That's a very difficult one. My reaction is physical. I like to be able to hold the cards, play with the person, talk with the person. But digital opens up so many amazing avenues, like being able to play on my couch with my friends that I've also played physically or not, So I think physical, but digital is pretty amazing as well.
It's always a tough question to answer too. I think like when I had that question, I thought about it for a while. I've done more digital than physical, but the appeal of when you have those cards physically in your possession, even if the game dies, you still have it. It's not going away. And with digital games, as cool as they can be and the collection that you have, if the game fails at some point, goodbye cards.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. So, I have a deck of L5R that I had played a long, long time ago, and it went through reiterations to where it's no longer a game that you can play or you can go buy. I didn't play it for very long. I played it with my brother who played competitively, and we have the ability to each pull out a deck that we shelved in the closet at some point in our lives and replay. And I'll pull out my rattling army. I will have no idea what it's supposed to do or how it's going to run, but we'll be able to play it again.
That's awesome. And then you got to round up some friends and start hosting underground games. Restart the community from the ground up.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I guess if Hearthstone ever goes down, we'll have our Twitch clips.
Yeah, we'll just we'll remake the game physically by retracing our steps from the Twitch clips.
The physical game based on the digital game that was based on the physical game. All right, let's go. We're getting there. It's like card game Inception.
Exactly.
Oh.
Hey, you got the name right there, Hearthstoneception.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. We always like to do at least one off the wall, not put in the show note question for the lightning round. So I have one for you here. If you were one of the Forgeborn from Soulforge, which Forgeborn would you be?
Yeah, Korok. So this one's a fairly easy one for me. I would say the first time I played Korok, who is a Tempest or red Forgeborn, the amount of people that right off the bat told me that Forgeborn is not good, instantly put up my hackles, and I said, I'm gonna make it good. If you tell me something's not good, I'm gonna find a way to make it good. And I do believe Korok is, no worse than any of them out there. He's a very strong Forgeborn, has his definite abilities, and he's a very aggressive Forgeborn. So like when you're playing a game as Korok, you're trying to end the game as quickly as you can, which I think is a very fun play style. If you can't control them so that they have no good decisions, you could just take away all their decisions by, killing them very quickly, which Korok can do. So, yeah.
Awesome. See, Ron, Soulforge Fusion also has face. They have Smork decks. You just you hit them in the face. Let's go. I'm trying so hard, Ron. I need you to get involved in this game. It's my new love. I'm hooked. I need you to get into it.
Eventually, when Michelle's schedule calms down and we get to actually play a game against each other with the starter kit, I'll report back, and maybe that'll be the thing that opens the floodgates.
All right, I'm ready. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, we would love to hear from you, Ryan, real quick. Where can people find you or follow you? You definitely mentioned your YouTube, so please absolutely also plug that so that people can check out more of what you do.
Yeah, if you're interested in Soulforge Fusion, one of the best places to find me is the Stoneblade Entertainment SBE Discord, where I'm Casey Kidd on there. I'm pretty active, always trying to help new players. But then also I do the Forgeborn Finishing School on YouTube. So youtube.com, / the Forgeborn Finishing School. And you can see some videos, essentially on how to really just kind of kickstart your competitive, capabilities in the game, and things that I hope are useful to, newer players and advanced players alike.
100%. I don't know if I actually mentioned it on the show because I think you and I were talking about it before we recorded. But I watched all of your videos leading up to TCG Con. It was that 2-week period. I was like, okay, I gotta study this game as much as I can. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of have limited time because I'm still streaming Hearthstone and doing this other content and doing these other things. So where can I learn the fastest? And it was these videos are awesome. You give a lot of tips. There was some videos where you kind of talked about some of the most notable or kind of big impactful cards. So I kind of knew, oh, hey, if I hear somebody talking about this, at least I kind of can I know, oh, that's kind of an important card. So I kind of had some things to look for, which actually was really helpful because then I knew what Taliesin was when I got demolished by it on day 2. So I was like, yeah, I remember this from the video. Yep.
Oh, hey, I know this card. Oh,
yep,
wait, this card means I lost.
Yeah, that was not great. But I will say too, if there is anybody who wants to check out the channel, for me personally, absolutely recommend the video about batching and how batch works. You and I talked about it before the show, but in Magic, you have the stack, cards get added to the stack and things resolve. In Legends of Runeterra, things kind of get resolved also in kind of that backwards order. So for Soulforge Fusion is a little bit different in kind of how that works. It's kind of the current card resolves and then other things, right? When you play a creature like that, all resolves first and then other things happen around it. I did not understand that or know that, just by reading the rules. And then I watched your video on that and was like, that's important. I feel like I should, it's kind of a need to know thing. Otherwise I would mess everything up in how this works.
Yeah, it's a unique approach. I'm glad you bring up that video, and it's really awesome to hear that people find this stuff useful. The batch mechanics, just understanding it is useful to play, of course, obviously, right? But I think when you understand the stack in Magic, or when you understand the batch in Soulforge Fusion, you can use that to your advantage. You can weaponize it by playing cards in the correct order. So that's why I really wanted to get that one out there, and it's really awesome to hear that people find it useful.
Nice. And of course, before we wrap up the show, just want to check in one last time if there's any other places that people can find you, or any last things on your mind that you wanted to plug.
No, that's where you can find me. I guess I will, just throw one more mention out there for the Stoneblade Discord. If you want to try SoulForge Fusion, that's the best place. Is if you go to SoulForge Fusion's website, Google it, and then their Discord's right on there. You can join. The community's amazing. You can play it on Tabletop Simulator. Just about any time of the day, you'll be able to find someone who wants to help you learn how to play the game. And if you can't find someone, reach out to me. I would love to have you on and teach you how to play SoulForge Fusion and talk about the game or other games.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us this week. And you, the viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If you all know anyone that might be interested in joining us, of course, please reach out. You can email us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. And you can find the link, of course, in our description and show notes for a link to our Discord as well. You can check out the video version at YouTube if you search dragonrider TCCG. And we are everywhere you can find audio podcasts. Also, you can help support us directly while getting some sweet merch like playmats and other game accessories with our Inked Gaming affiliate link, which you can find in our top pinned tweet and links. And you can find us individually, your hosts, myself, RonMexico at Twitter, at Ron_HS. You can find me on YouTube at RonMexicoHS. And you can find me streaming on Twitch Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern at RonMexicoHS. Dawn, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at DawnieDK. That's DAWNIEDK. Find me on Twitch and YouTube, dragonrider TCCG. And you can find me talking all about standard Hearthstone every week over at the Dr. 3HS podcast as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. And that will do it for us for this week. So thank you once again, and we will see you at the roundtable.